Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for episode 34 of The Murder in My Family. As I mentioned in the last episode, new episodes of the show will be dropping every other Saturday, starting with this episode, and will continue on that schedule for the foreseeable future. If you're a fan of this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast, so that the show can continue to grow and reach new listeners. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @murderinmyfam, or by searching for the Murder in My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to help support this show through a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. Benefits of supporting the show on Patreon include early access to ad-free episodes of the show, plus bonus content not heard in regular episodes. Support may also include thank you cards, stickers, and more. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I'll give shoutouts to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Jennifer. And thank you to all the supporters that generously donate to help keep the show growing and improving. And one last bit of housekeeping. CrimeCon is just over a month away. You've heard me talk about it and how excited I am to be going to it. If you'd like to go, there's still time, and you can be part of the fun by registering at crimecon.com today and purchasing your badges. And when you do, be sure to use my promo code Criminology19 to save 10% on standard badges. The next 3 people that use that promo code Criminology19 to purchase their badges will get a merch bag delivered to you in person at CrimeCon by yours truly. Merchandise such as books, coffee mugs, stickers, and more. And one last note about CrimeCon. I plan to do a meetup there with previous guests of the show to discuss their cases in person in a roundtable style format. I'll be recording that for a future episode. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope to see lots of listeners there. Now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get started with today's case. Today's case is a sad and frustrating one that's left the family divided and has provided far more questions than answers. With barely more than a single news article about the case and a coroner's report in hand, it was hard to gather material to tell this story. But for the victim's sake in this case, 72-year-old Joanne Brownlee of Colorado Springs, Colorado, her story needs to be told. And don't be surprised by the end of the episode if you're not as frustrated and angry with the roadblocks being thrown up in this case. And you might be surprised who's throwing them up. It's sad and frustrating to think about how Joanne Brownlee's life came to an end in early 2013. And the worst part of this case is that the person who may have the most answers isn't talking, someone who is close to Joanne. Joanne Brownlee was a divorced mother of two who enjoyed animals and the outdoors. She worked for her family's art supply business. She pretty much led a normal life, but when she reached her 50s, a battle with glaucoma had taken its toll, and it also took Joanne's sight, leaving her completely blind. This was devastating for Joanne. Fortunately, her son and daughter jumped in to help Joanne make it through the difficulty of losing her sight. Joanne's mother purchased a home for Joanne to live in, along with Joanne's daughter, who was to help take care of her newly blind mother. The home was titled in Joanne's name, as well as both of her children. Although Joanne's son, David, lived with his wife in another home, he would often stop by and try and take care of things around his mother's house. Things went well for a long time. From the early 1990s until about 2013, the arrangement worked. But in January of 2013, David would get a call that would forever change his life. A family friend called David to let him know that his mother was missing. David immediately headed to the home that his mother and sister shared. When David arrived at the house, he scrambled to find out what was going on. He quickly found out that his mother's purse had been discovered outside a Chick-fil-A restaurant, not far from her home. But there was no sign of Joanne. David didn't know if his mother had wandered off and gotten lost, or if she was the victim of foul play. But while his wife went to the police station to fill out missing persons paperwork, David searched the house looking for any sign of Joanne. He didn't know it at the time, but a sheriff's deputy had already looked through the house, and neither man found any sign of Joanne being there. While David tried to figure out what happened to his mother, he noticed that his sister's behavior was odd. She didn't seem to be acting the way someone would act after finding out that their blind mother was missing. As word spread in the neighborhood about the missing 72-year-old woman, David, along with his wife, was asked to go to the police station to be questioned by police. The questioning lasted most of the night. When it finally ended in the early morning hours, David headed back to his mother's house. When he got there, he found police carefully sifting through the home looking for clues. As the group made their way throughout the house, one of the detectives made a gruesome discovery in the home's basement when he found a hand protruding from the crawl space. Police escorted both of Joanne Brownlee's children from the home, now treating it like a crime scene. As they looked closer in the crawl space, under a pile of wet clothes, detectives found Joanne's lifeless body. It was then that David and his sister were told by police that their mother was dead, and once again they were asked to go down to the police station to give statements and answer questions. It was at this point that Joanne's daughter stopped cooperating and refused to answer any questions. While David was in shock and wondered why his sister had stopped helping police, it was David's wife who immediately started to suspect that David's own sister might have had something to do with Joanne's death. Once police were able to remove Joanne's body from the crawl space, it was sent to a medical examiner for examination. On January 28, 2013, the medical examiner listed the cause of death as undetermined, but noted multiple rib fractures, abrasions, contusions, and blunt force trauma to the skin. Since that autopsy was performed, David has found additional information which leads him to believe that his mother was strangled. In the aftermath of Joanne Brownlee's body being found in the crawl space underneath her home, police didn't have anything solid enough to charge anyone with a crime. Questions abound. What happened to Joanne Brownlee? How did she wind up in that crawl space? And how did she receive the injuries that she sustained? Finally, how did her purse wind up at Chick-fil-A? The only person that might be able to shed light on the case and answer some of those questions is Joanne Brownlee's own daughter, and she isn't talking. Her reluctance to help has caused an irreparable rift between her and her brother David. It's been over 5 years since Joanne Brownlee's body was found stuffed into a crawl space under her home. The house has since been renovated and resold. Despite the passage of time, the picture of what happened to Joanne Brownlee isn't becoming any clearer for her son, David Brownlee. The rift with his sister is still there, and there's no sign that it will be resolved anytime soon. David sat down with me to discuss his mother's case and opened up about the rift between him and his sister. And he shared with me the frustration of what it's like when the person who should be his greatest ally in finding out the truth about what happened to his mother is perhaps the biggest obstacle to getting answers. That conversation is next. David, thanks so much for joining me to discuss your mom's case today.
You're welcome.
If you can, tell us a little bit about your mom and what kind of person she was, what she was like.
My mom always wanted to be a good mother. She had an artistic bent, bit creative. She enjoyed hikes. She enjoyed birds, pets, especially dogs. We had dogs growing up. She was only child. She was divorced when she was 31, and I was 7 years old. She always wanted to have 3 children, but was only able to have 2. She worked for her folks in art supplies and drafting supplies and picture framing. Her folks had their own shop. She was born in St. Joseph, Missouri, and she had some health issues growing up as a child, and they settled in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It just seemed to agree with her asthma and health, kind of more of a higher altitude. She had glaucoma, and in her late 50s, she did go blind from glaucoma. And she was a member of Job's Daughters for a number of years during high school and post-high school. And that's kind of a...
And you mentioned the glaucoma left her blind. How big an adjustment was that for her? Was that something that she had to get used to? Was that something that stood in her way, or did she still continue to do things even though she had that eye problem? When
the glaucoma started really taking its total effect, her sight just gradually diminished, and then she just couldn't see colors, and then she went and was declared legally blind. It was something that she was told from a very early age that she could go blind from, and she took medicine, eye drops, to reduce the glaucoma, or the eye pressure, if you will, which is a lot of higher pressure in the eye is a cause of glaucoma, and basically just wore on her optic nerves, and she was not the same after she went blind. The housekeeping and upkeep on the home and a lot of her interests subsided.
So it sounds like it was a big life-changing event for her.
Correct, yes. Mm-hmm.
And what was her living situation when she died? Where was she living, and who did she live with?
She lived with my sister. After several years after my folks divorced, we were still in the same house, and my grandparents kind of egged us on as a family unit, being my mom's sister and myself. And so they wanted us to move out of Pikes Peak Park area in Colorado Springs and move to a different part of town in Colorado Springs. So we did, an area called Nob Hill. And they they bought the house for us, basically paying the mortgage. And then in the mid-90s, after the mortgage was paid, my grandmother, my mom's mom, went ahead and put the house in all 3 of our names, being my mom's sister and myself. And we basically, as a threesome or a family, owned the house. However, I hadn't lived there since probably the late 80s or so. And my mom and sister lived together.
So they lived there together for a while, the 2 of them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. From probably the very early 90s, clear up through my mom's homicide in 2013. And my sister, being a person of interest, she, after the crime scene and all that, she tried to go back there and stay there for a few nights, and I heavily discouraged it until we were able to get her to stay with some friends. And my sister just, I don't know how to describe it, just very awkward in wanting to go back and stay in the house still. It just befuddles me.
The fact that she wanted to go back there after your mom's body was discovered there?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
If you will, take us back to the day when you realized something was wrong. How did that all play out? How did you find out that your mom was missing or had been found inside the house the way she was? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. My wife and I, we went and saw a movie, and then we went shopping at Costco. And while at Costco, I received a phone call from a friend saying that my mom was missing. So at that point, my wife and I kind of went two different directions. And then we both met up at my mom and sister's home, or our home, I guess. Anyway, my wife and I, we had our own home. We just periodically went over there and took care of it, did a few things here and there. But kind of back to your question, so we found out late Saturday afternoon that my mom was missing. There was reportedly a purse that was found at a Chick-fil-A several miles away. So anyway, my wife went to the police station to file a missing persons report, and she informed the police that my mom was blind. So they escalated the missing persons report, because usually I think there's a 24-hour wait period. And then I went over to my mom's house, and I just ran through the house. And previous to that, before I was able to get over there, the police department, they sent a deputy sheriff over there, and he didn't find anything abnormal, or because he went through the house before I did. But neither the deputy sheriff or myself thought to look through every closet, nook and cranny, crawl space, etc. So anyway, the night progressed. We continued to look for my mom. There was some longtime family friends over, and for a while we just sat and talked for a little bit in the living room. And then later on that evening, my sister and I were called to a police station in Stetson Hills, which is a suburb of Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we were interviewed or interrogated, if you will, all night. And then early in the morning, 4:30 or so, we went back over to the house, and with two detectives who had been interrogating us. And so they started going through the house. We went through the upstairs part, couple rooms, and then they wouldn't go down to the basement area. And then one of the police detectives was taking pictures with an iPad, and then the other detectives asked us to go back upstairs with him. So my sister and I did. And maybe 15, 20 minutes later, the other detective came back upstairs. We were asked to leave the house. And then when we got outside, probably 6 or so in the morning, roughly, there was like a whole police squadron out there, unmarked cars, marked police cars. And the detectives told us that at that time, once we were outside, that it was now a crime scene. And the detective that told us that they found through the pictures an arm sticking out through the wall in I guess, well, in the crawl space area there was a hole in the wall that we never had fixed. It was maybe 4 or 5 inches in diameter. Anyway, the police detective when he was taking pictures, found the picture or took the picture of that. And then when the one police detective was down there, he, I guess, lifted up some clothes or something and found a body under there, which we would later find out that Sunday. A little bit more details about that. So my sister and I went down to the police station, and we were interrogated some more in different rooms, of course, as the night before. And they asked us to take some swab samples for DNA. I did. They asked my wife to come down and to be a witness or to share what she knew and what she knew about my family dynamics and everything. So I called my wife probably 7 o'clock in the morning, and she came down to the police station between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning, I believe. And so they asked us questions together and separately. And they also asked my wife to take a DNA swab. So she did. But my sister had declined. And partially through the interrogation that morning, she decided she didn't want to be asked any more questions. So she took the Fifth Amendment or Miranda rights and just stopped, just didn't want to be asked any more questions. So anyway, they released us about 12:30 or 1. And so we went back over, the police officers dropped us by the home, so we were able to get our vehicles and everything. And then kind of the day just went by, and I can't think of the word, but just kind of zoned out.
Sort of in shock.
My sister,
maybe a little bit of shock,
yeah,
maybe.
Shock.
Yeah.
And then my sister stayed the night with the next 2 nights, I think it was, with my wife and I. And my wife firmly believed it was my sister that had done this horrendous act. And I was still in shock and found it hard to believe that my sister would do something like that. But kind of as time went on, I more and more believed that, because we caught my sister in several lies, and just her wanting to skirt around the issues and not divulge anything or share what happened to bring me peace of mind. That's pretty much all I want at this point, is just for my wife for my sister to share what happened. How did my mom end up in the crawl space with candles and damp clothes around her? Based on the coroner's report, she had contusions, abrasions, fractured ribs, candle wax underneath her fingernails. And lastly, both the detectives and the coroner's report stated that they firmly, or for the most part, believed that she was strangled. And it's like, how did this happen? Did my sister just get into a fit of rage or what? I don't know. And still to this day, my sister won't say anything. We haven't been in contact, a few texts in the last couple of years. It's been a while, but I've written my sister a letter or two asking her, and no reply, no response, no nothing. So my sister and I are at odds and no longer have a brother-sister relationship. And I kind of thought we had a strong one, but we don't. Not anymore.
And was there any kind of history of violence or arguing or anything between your sister and your mom?
Yes, we had quite a dysfunctional family. I kind of played mediator, trying at times growing up, between my mom and sister, and sometimes me getting involved, yelling and screaming at one another. And between my mom and my sister would not overly abuse, but would sometimes just take swats at my mom, and sometimes my mom would take swats at my sister. And I really didn't think it was that serious, but looking back throughout the years, I should have maybe done something about it, went to social services or something. I don't know.
And so I'm trying to envision this crawl space. Was the crawl space like down in a basement?
It was underneath the stairwell. Let's see, it was probably maybe about 2 to 3 feet wide, maybe more like 3 feet. And on the large part of the step area, it might have gone up about 5 feet, and then it followed the steps all the way down, so it got real narrow as it went down towards the lower step. And it was behind more of like a closet crawl space behind the wash utility room, I should say, wash and dryer room, utility room.
So this isn't a spot where your mom would have accidentally, if she, couldn't see where she was going, she wouldn't have been able to get up into this area on her own. It doesn't seem like.
No. Mm-mm. From what the police detectives say, and my growing up in the house or spending 12, 14 years there, it would be a miracle for my mom to find her way and put clothes on herself and do all that stuff to get in that crawl space area. And there's just no way in the world.
Yeah, and I that's what I was thinking, that there's just, how would she be able to go down there, get into this little tight spot and somehow get herself in there, which, if that's the case, if that's not the case, then that leaves somebody else putting her in there. And that sort of seems to leave only, one person, if there's only one person in the house with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And missions to Mars, driverless cars, AI chatbots. Feels like we're already living in the future. Well, Robinhood is built for the future of trading. Robinhood's intuitive design makes trading seamless. Spot opportunities and take control of your trades with tools like screeners, simulated returns, and Strategy Builder. On Robinhood, traders have access to hundreds of popular stocks and ETFs, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, so you can keep up with today's fast-paced markets. You can now even trade stocks and crypto all in one place with the new desktop platform, Robinhood Legend. The future of trading is fast, powerful, and precise. Experience it now on Robinhood. Investing is risky. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Trading during extended hours involves additional risks. Cryptocurrency services are offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC, NMLS ID 1702840. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services.
So in the police, in the autopsy, the medical evaluation, I read that they mentioned the injuries were consistent with a homicide, but they stopped short of calling it a homicide. Was that troubling for you? Did you ask them why they didn't call it an actual homicide?
I did speak with the coroner office about it, and they were very helpful, and also the police detectives, and why... based on their explanation, is they believe that the body was there. And this is another puzzling aspect, is I don't know how someone could stand to be in a house with dead mother or dead father or anything like that, knowing that they're there. Anyway, they said that the coroner's office believed that she was there for 2+ weeks or more. So the body was decomposing. And I went on YouTube, probably against better judgment, and watched how a body decomposes. And that's the main reason why they couldn't determine if it was an actual homicide, rather than just believe it was, because of how bad the body had decomposed.
So they could tell she had some injuries and some things that made them suspicious, but the decomposition was too advanced for them to say for sure.
Correct, yes.
And that must be frustrating for you after all these years to know that she was likely murdered, but they haven't been able to file any murder charges. How frustrating has that been?
It's been very, and especially around Christmas time on in through January, because December 23rd, 2012 was the last time I saw her. And then a month later, in a few days, she was gone. And then the real aggravating part is my sister living there with my mom in the crawl space. And then us, when we realized that, thinking back to that Saturday night before, is here we were literally about 10, 12 feet above her in the living room. And then thinking how my sister would have the gall just to act like there's no dead body or anything, or she wasn't aware of it at all, with my mom's body being in the basement. It just behooves me.
And it just seems like it would be very frustrating to know that she was in there all that time. And so how long before the police got involved was she actually reported missing? Was it the day when you were at the Costco that you found out? Is that the day she was reported missing?
Yes, and talking with my sister, she stated that that morning that my mom was picked up in a white type of utility vehicle, and that she was spending the day out running errands and whatnot. And then the next day we find out that was found in crawl space. And that's just one big lie after another. And then I talked with my sister more, and she said that my mom was at a blind conference in Denver, Colorado. So I called a couple of different blind associations, and they did not have any conferences at all around the middle of January that my sister stated that my mom went to. And then that goes back 2 to 3 weeks. So how could my sister not come clean, not share, hey, look, you know, something happened with her mom, or even come clean and say that, you know, I got in a rage or something? I don't know. Because my sister does have a hot temper, and then so does my mom.
So you think it could have been something, an argument that got out of hand or something like that?
That's one possibility, yeah.
And did your sister have anything to gain financially or anything? You know, was there life insurance where she would get money from something happening to your mom?
No, the house was very run down, and there was 2 liens that I later found out about that was attributed to my sister for not paying taxes on the house and having a credit card debt, and that totaled $20,000, or almost $20,000.
The suspicious part to me is it seems like, you know, she says that morning when she was reported missing, that she went out with somebody, but according to the coroner, she was dead before that. That seems like a lie right there, which would tip off police.
Exactly. Yep.
And
so that might have been why they kind of escalated it, and then they kind of thought about it and escalated it and went over to the house first thing in the morning after interviewing or interrogating my sister and I.
And Dave, I don't know, the volume just went down a little bit. I don't know if you stepped back from the phone, but I couldn't hear you that last part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. It sounded like it got far away or something before. Can you just repeat that last part that you said?
It just was very difficult for finding it out. And with the police detectives taking us over there first thing on a Sunday morning, and then within a short period of time finding out that my mom had been there for 2 weeks or more in the crawl space.
So at this point now, you've got this, you don't have a relationship with your sister. At this point, what's important to you? Just to know the truth? Or do you, if it was your sister, do you want her to be punished? What is it that you'd like to see come out of this?
Just for my sister to share what happened from her perspective, what transpired, just to have an understanding of it. And as far as justice, in the long run, God will take care of that. And if indeed, and we're about 99.9% sure it was my sister, I think that with her having that on her mind, or having the guilt and the shame from it, I think that's more than enough punishment. I couldn't bear to live with myself, I don't think, doing that. And then also, we just want to know the basic truth of the matter. You know, what happened.
Just to find out the details of why it happened. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any chance? I know you've gone to the press and they've run a story about your mom's case. Have you been trying to reach out to other people to bring awareness, to let people know about what happened to your mom?
There was an organization that I attempted to work with out of California. My wife and I had watched, I think it was a documentary or show, and they had their this organization out in California information. So I reached out and contacted them, and they weren't able to find out anything or to do any further investigation on it. And that's partially due to the police detectives. They are at kind of odds with not sharing information, only with family members. But I did ask them specifically, the police detectives that is, to share information with this organization out in California. And from my understanding, with talking with the police detectives, they only prefer family, and so they didn't divulge much information at all to this organization or this gentleman in California, much to my dismay.
So you feel like that was a missed opportunity to look into this a little bit more?
Yes, because this organization, they're a nonprofit, and they come alongside families who've lost or had a killed family member or homicide, and they help raise funds for information that would lead to a potential arrest. So they were going to help put out some pamphlets and kind of do another local news broadcast in the Colorado Springs area. But that fell through.
And is there any chance the police are still working on this? Have they closed it? Are they leaving it open? What's the status of the case?
There was an organization that I attempted to work with out of California. My wife and I had watched, I think it was a documentary or show, and they had their this organization out in California. And they had their From my last discussion with them, it's pretty much a closed case, though they're calling it a cold case. And they don't really have much to go on, just a little bit of circumstantial evidence. Not enough to bring about a conviction or arrest.
Yeah, and it's a sad situation because you've lost your mom in such a horrible way, and now you don't have a relationship with your sister.
Right.
So you've lost two people in your family, essentially.
And I was just going to mention that my dad's is aware of everything, and my sister has minimal contact with my dad, and my dad's tried to ask my sister and about what happened, and he's gotten nowhere. And my dad is pretty much wheelchair bound and has a lot of physical issues. And even 6 years ago when this happened, he wasn't able to come out or help my sister or I or help us do anything. All we did was talk with him on the phone, and then my wife went down there to kind of get away for a little bit and spend some time away.
And so even other family members aren't having any luck with getting her to share any more information.
No, we did a family intervention. We went to a church where my sister knew a lot of the women pastors there and admins, and nothing happened. And we even tried it with a few mutual close friends of my sister and I, and we didn't get anywhere. And even if I was to mention this pastor's name, more than likely you and your audience would know it. I don't know if I should, so at this point I won't. But anyway, this pastor, my sister and I have known since about the mid-'80s. And this pastor got my sister a pretty well-known lawyer, and my sister declined to work with the lawyer to do anything. And so finally, the lawyer gave my sister an ultimatum to either start participating and help with the case, or the lawyer would have to let her go. So the lawyer let her go. So anyway, it's just a train wreck.
So there's no sign of any kind of closure or answers coming anytime soon, apparently.
No truth, no understanding, no justice.
And it's sad that your mom's her life had to end the way it did in that dark and damp crawl space, and I can only imagine what that would do to you and how you had to think about that happening. I hope that somehow, some way you get the answers that you deserve and find out the truth. And I hope that helps you, and that you don't have to go years wondering and trying to find out information about what happened to your mom.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Mike. I just hope this helps, and it helps discussing it and getting it out there more.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder of My Family. If you enjoy this episode, please introduce a friend to the podcast and invite them to listen. One of the things I'm always happy to do on this show is to let listeners know about other true crime podcasts that I think they'll enjoy. And as we wrap up today, I'd like to invite you to listen to a preview of the Mens Rea podcast. And before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.
Mens rea is the legal principle of criminal intent. It means literally the guilty mind. Join me, Sinead, every fortnight to discuss Ireland and the UK's most heinous crimes and the court cases that followed. Do you want to know more about a kink killing in Dublin in 2012? Or serial killers in Scotland? Whatever your guilty pleasure, you'll find it and all the details with me. Find Mens Rea wherever you get your podcasts.